Think of yourself as a video game character. You want to constantly be leveling up that character.
Welcome.
Josh, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I did a similar intro with Chase because I met both of you at our event, the Young and Reckless event, Build Your Empire, like 6 months ago for the first time. And I had heard about you guys, obviously. And then you came and you spoke on panels and stuff like that. And like, I think for me, being that I do a podcast like this and generally just sort of am inspired by people like you guys, when I saw the way that you spoke on the panel, the way people react to you, I was like, wow, like we have to do a pod. And I just want to pick your brain about a million other things, right? So
Sure.
We finally made it happen.
That's right.
Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
And I'm excited to really get to know you and your story and know more about what you've built. Since then, I've now followed you on social media. I see a combination of things. I see you seem like generally a good dude. I also get to see some Lambos and Ferraris and the cool shit. And then I also see like funny skits and videos. You know what I mean? Like there's a very well-rounded representation of who you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we made this happen.
Yeah, of course. Let's start at the very beginning. Where are you from? What was childhood like? Like, what's young Josh Snow life look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think I never knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I'll start with that because that's important. Like, growing up, I knew I wanted to do something. Like, there was something inside me all the time where I'm competitive, but I'm a lot more internally competitive. So I'm not going to throw the basketball at you. I'm not a bad sport. I'm not going to, but in my own mind, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to practice 2 hours before everybody, right? I'm like for myself. And so I've always kind of had that. And, now looking back on it, I didn't know at the time, but, childhood was great. Definitely didn't grow up with like a ton of money. Definitely not a privileged, overly privileged, household or anything like that. But it's not like I never, that I went without needing something that I needed, right? But, kind of along the way, it was actually in 2008. So I'm 26 right now. Mm-hmm. So I was 15, 14. I think it might have been before that. I learned how to program websites because I was hanging out at the Phoenix Public Library. So I was born and raised in Phoenix. Uh-huh. And I was hanging out at the Phoenix Public Library to stay out of trouble. So when I wasn't playing football or in track and field, I drew shot put and discus, and then I was tight end quarterback for football. So I love sports. But in between seasons, I would hang out at the library, and we didn't have a computer at home, mostly because we couldn't afford one. Yeah. So I liked being around computers, and actually a funny story that I never knew this was gonna help me build big businesses at the time because I was a kid. But my mom brought home a spare keyboard from her work and set it on the table because I used to watch her on her typewriter and stuff, and I was so fascinated. I would just watch her like, yeah. And so one day she brought an extra keyboard for me so I could just play with whatever. So when I was a kid, I would watch TV and I would type out what they were saying. So I was like transcribing it.
That's wild.
But it was a game. It was just like, can I get all the words? And before I knew it, I stopped looking down at the keyboard. I was looking up. So when we had our first typing class in school,
smoked everybody.
Well, the teacher but the teacher came over and was like, something's got to be like going on here. Like there's a glitch in the computer. Like, I don't know. So she comes over and she grabs a little orange cover and puts it over my keyboard. Yeah. And she's like, Josh, if you don't mind, do it again. Same speed. Yeah. And same accuracy pretty much. And she's like, this is like, where did you learn how to do this? This is not okay. Like, what is going on? I was like in second grade, third grade. And I was like at 100 words per minute. And she's like, what? So the reason why I bring that story up, and I recently discovered this or uncovered this from my past, that that allowed me to not be afraid of computers because I had that exposure. And then when I was in the library, everybody else was playing games like any other 12, 13-year-old kid is playing video games on the computer. There was a competition at the library where if you read books, you take a test, you get points, you can like cash them in or whatever for Diamondback tickets for baseball, whatever. And so I found a loophole kind of in the program. It's not really a loophole, but if you read obviously more difficult books, you get more points. Mm-hmm. But I found that the For Dummies books were like reference books, but they were mostly pictures, super, young vocabulary, so it's easy to read. So I started reading those books, and I came across one called Web Design for Dummies and Building Websites, etc. And I thought that was always cool because I was like, I want to build the games that my friends are playing. Like I want to do that. And so I learned to program and being able to type super fast because programming is like writing, right? It's like you're creating painting.
Yeah.
And the faster you can type, the more you can think, and it doesn't hold you back. You're not like thinking about it. It just flows. So I started programming, and I got really, really good at it. And that's where I started. I never knew that I was going to be in the internet. I didn't want to tell anybody I was programming at the time because it wasn't cool.
Yeah.
And for sure, I never thought I could make money doing it.
Yeah. That is wild. You know what I'm fascinated by as I do more and more of these episodes is how those like first initial like instincts or things that you gravitate to can turn out to be so important. And like just for some reason, finding fun in typing led you on this like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where like some people just find like, I don't know. I mean, I guess playing video games now it can be very lucrative, but like some people just get obsessed with playing video games and you end up just being the best one of your friends at Call of Duty, and that's about it. And then you have to go to your job and like be miserable, right?
Right.
Whereas there's certain people that like gravitated to these things that ended up becoming so useful. It's so interesting to me because that stuff like, I don't know, man, it adds up. Even some people are like that with like fitness or physical things, right? And then there's other people who never had any engagement to anything like that, and now it's such a nightmare for them to try to figure it out. You know what I mean? But it's so fascinating that you kind of had that little bit of an instinct. And then you on your own sort of by choice were more drawn to seeing the game and wanting to program that game as opposed to play that game. I think is like such a big differentiator between types of people.
Well,
you know
that's a
what I
key.
mean?
That's a key thing. Now I understand it. You know, like a lot of this, it's taken me 10 years to unpack it, and doing interviews and talking about it allows me to understand myself more. And so like when I think about it, I'm like, okay, it's the producer mindset instead of the consumer mindset. Yeah. And if you think about, generating wealth and creating value in the economy, it's like you have to be a producer. Yeah. And so every time I look at something, I'm like, okay. And for a while, when I was younger, it consumed me because I was like, I'm buying all these clothes. Like I should start a clothing company. I'm buying all this water bottles. I should start a water bottle company. Yeah. And then you look it up and then you see like the margins. You're like, they made this thing for 30 cents and I paid $5. Oh my God. So you're like, no. And all of a sudden you almost become like jaded because you're like, I'm not buying anything because I know the markups on everything.
Of course.
And like you're jaded for a while. And the big thing for me was when the iPhone came out in 2007, I now had the internet in my palm. And so that was transformational for me because when I was on the bus, I could be sitting there and anytime I thought of something, I'm like, what does that mean? Or the teacher said something today, I didn't really understand that. I didn't agree with that. Let me think about that. And really, I think the decentralization of information is what creates an equal opportunity for everyone. Because if you think about it, 20 years ago, at 14 years old, I made my first $1 million at 17 years old. Yeah. That's really not possible. I started with $100. So like, that's not really possible 20 years ago. Yeah. Timing is key. And now you've got, I saw on Business Insider, which is not necessarily the most reputable news source, but it's fun. Yeah. And Ryan's reviews toys or something, 22 million a year.
Kid prints money.
He prints money. You look at that 7-year-old, and obviously parents are involved in stuff, but who cares? $22 million. Yep. The decentralization of influence, of power, of information. We live in an age right now where truly anything is possible. Yeah. And the trick is to make sure you're producing and not consuming. Yeah. So when I catch myself consuming Instagram too much, I'm like, wait, am I posting stuff? Yeah. Am I creating content? Or am I just scrolling around? Yeah. Or am I actively, it's okay to scroll around, but am I actively like taking notes and saying, oh, this is what pops off, this is what doesn't? Yeah. Like, what am I doing here? Because it's too easy to be a consumer. Yeah. Consumerism is incredibly hypnotic and it like drags you in. And same thing with buying stuff. Like I love to shop, I love clothes, I love jewelry. Like all of a sudden I'll spend 5 hours shopping and I'm like, okay, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because it started off by saying like, let me see how these guys do their exit pop up on their website.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm in there like shopping, adding the cart. I'm like, wait. So consumerism, if you understand it, you can try to reduce the amount that it pulls you in, and you can use it to your advantage to understand how people buy. And I think for me, that's where I transformed from website designer, website developer, to really sales and marketing and understanding the psychology of the consumer. And if you understand that the principles have not changed for thousands of years, people buy for the same reasons they bought 3,000 years ago. Now you have the ability to disseminate information super quickly through Instagram, through Facebook, and you can now create trends. And so you can supply demand. And that's something that's never really been possible at the speed that it is now, where I can, for example, I can start a rumor that, for example, the startup Allbirds with the recycled shoes, or Native Cosmetics with the deodorant, aluminum in deodorant near the breast region, breast cancer. You can disseminate that information, whether it's false or true. You can disseminate it very quickly, and you can build a brand on the back of that. So that's what's interesting for me now. And I have a hard time sleeping sometimes at night because there are so many opportunities. And one thing that's helped me focus is that there will always be opportunity. Like there will always be, I missed Instagram train. It's okay. I said that when the Google was there, Facebook, now Instagram, now TikTok. Like you have to relax and you have to, I always use the analogy of hunting for elephants. Wait for the elephant hunt versus, the rabbit.
Yeah. Where do you think because you said you're 26? Like you're still a super young dude. Where do you think you learned to think this way? Because I find that so much of this stuff, like some people learn it in college, some people learn it from their parents, some people just naturally think this way, but so much of successful people and not the difference is just the way you think. And I've never heard of 170 whatever episodes, I've never heard anyone so clearly just differentiate between being a consumer and being a producer. But at a young age, to be riding the bus home, get your first iPhone or whatever, and not use it to go mess around or try to find pictures of boobs like everyone else does and figure out something that you didn't agree with is like a pretty big differentiation in thought process. It
is. So I give a lot of credit to my dad. My dad left Spain and came to the U.S. and left a great career and everything because there's something unique and magical about the United States. And if you really think about it, it's one of the best marketing campaigns by our founding fathers. They said, how can we poach all the best employees from all the other companies? Let's create this thing that anybody can be rich. And we're going to give everybody equity. So if you come here, everybody gets equity. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's right. I want to go there. And then the California gold rush and all the opportunity, just decade by decade, century by century, is well put together marketing strategy to attract and retain the best employees. And what we do a really good job at is we brain drain. So we drain the brains from our competitors. And we bring them to this land of the free. So very important. I'm a huge believer in capitalism. And you come here and say, you're going to be free here. You can think and say whatever you want. Now think about that. If you're growing up and let's say you're a teenager, you're a rowdy teenager, and I'm like, yo, come to my spot. My pops is cool. You can drink here, smoke here. You can say whatever the F you want. Come chill, dog. You can hang out as long as you want. By the way, you could be a billionaire if you want. Peace. And you're like, you could be living in the best, most peaceful, serene place. And you're like, I want to go there where the cool kids are. And because we dominate media, if you think about the other countries, they watch American media. We dominate the thought process and the cultural discussion. And that's very key because aspirationally, that's what people are thinking in their head. What do I want to be like? I want to be like Kim Kardashian. I want to go to America. And I see it all the time with tourists, even here in LA. They're like Hollywood. And they're like, consumerism, I need to buy. And then we created something called the credit card in the 1920s. And that allowed us to really, really become a superpower because we created the device for people to spend more than they have at the moment. which allowed us to push capitalism much further. So, for example, if I told you, all right, only 1,000 people have the money to buy clothing right now, you're like, okay, that's all I can get.
Yeah.
Cool. But I said, really, 10,000 people want clothing now.
Yeah.
They want your clothing, but they don't have the money right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to let them buy your clothing. So all of a sudden, the incentive to become an entrepreneur and to create something better and different went skyrocket. And if you look at the way that competition has evolved, and I'm going around your question, but really this kind of explains, like, I became obsessed with how people think, and a couple key terms that I live my life by. Chase difficulty is very, very key. So if it's difficult, it means that I'm going to have an inherent moat if I overcome it. Anytime something is hard and I want to quit, that means that other people have felt the exact same way.
Yeah.
So if I just push harder, then that's going to keep a lot of people away. Yeah. So I chase difficulty. And then the other thing too is I'm always trying to understand how people think, and I'm looking for people who disagree with me. Yeah. And a lot of times people will surround themselves, especially, it's very easy the more money you make, where I could surround myself with like 500 yes men, and like no one would challenge me, and I would stay in my own little bubble, and never open up, never talk to people, and just be like, I'm Ryan, go build a colony in South America, right? But that's, for me, I'm able to build, the way I explain it is you've got like a web in your brain, and the more that you can extend that web and the more that you can reinforce that web, it catches things more quickly, and bigger things and faster. And so I started studying learning models, mental models. The reason why I did this was because I'm a young Hispanic kid with $0 to my name, and all I ever wanted to be was successful. I just want to be something. And so it's like, okay, I remember going on YouTube and I would search, like, how did Bill Gates get started? How did Steve Jobs get started? You learn all these founder stories, and you realize that they're not that much different from you and I. And they too went through difficulties, and it wasn't just, I'm a billionaire overnight. It's like, okay, what did they do? And what do you have to do to become a billionaire? Well, you've got to create value. You've got to create something. It just doesn't come to you. So it's like, okay, I've got to create lots of jobs. And that's the irony of capitalism, is that you have to give sometimes more than you have in order to one day maybe get what you want. And so a lot of times, when young entrepreneurs are like, gosh, is it hard or is it easy? It's the hardest thing you can do. It's definitely the hardest choice you'll make in your life, because you become responsible for not just your employees, but also your customers. And then once your brand takes off, it's like a baby that's now a child, and you can't get rid of the child. Like, you have to keep tending to it. And now the spotlight's on you. So now it's like you have golden boy syndrome, where it's like, what's next, right? It's like, okay, you did that pretty well. What's next? And so for me, I've had to deal with imposter syndrome since I was 13 years old, because first it's crazy how it works. First, it was the other way. You're some young Hispanic poor kid. You're not gonna do nothing. Be a drug dealer, whatever. There's no way you're gonna be anything. And I said, no. I have to figure it out. And then I found that all of the people I would follow, like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they read a lot of books. And I was like, I read 0 books. And I was like, I hate reading. But I was like, but I like money. So I was like, all right, I got to start reading. So I'm like, it's free. It's at the library. So I started reading more and more and more and more. And then I said, I got to read harder books I don't understand. And I would just read them, and I'd read them. So my dad, who came from Spain and worked at the post office, that was a huge blessing in disguise, because he gained access to medical journals, things that he was, setting aside and sorting. And my dad is intellectually curious, super curious, thirsty for knowledge. Says man a few words, but constantly reading. And so because my dad worked the night shift, I would hardly ever see him, and he would leave printed articles on the table for me to read at 6 a.m. on the bus to school. And there were always things I never understood, but he would give me like $20 if I would read it and do like a book report or like something, or talk to him about it, because he wanted someone to talk to about it. So I'm sitting there at 8 years old reading quantum physics. I have no idea what it is. I still don't know what it is.
I tried to figure it out, and I don't know.
I know how to spell it now, finally, after 20 years. But like I don't understand it. But just what I found is that osmosis works in an interesting way, where if your mind is a muscle, and so if you never pick up heavier weights, you'll never pick up heavier weights.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to bench press 500 pounds, but you might be able to squat 500 pounds.
Yeah.
But it's that practice. And so for me, I become obsessed with understanding how do people think, and I try to go backwards to successful entrepreneurs that either have already passed, because then I can see the full picture. See, today I can go on Instagram and I can go around. I mean, you can come to me and you can look at my cars. I own all my cars cash, but you can look at it and be like, this guy rented a bunch of cars for Instagram. He's, he's taking pictures of someone else's jet. Like, you could rent a jet for like a day and take pictures in it. So like, you never know, right? I could look completely differently. I don't know. So what's unfortunate is that Instagram is so attractive that people are following, not necessarily it's all bad or whatever. I'm just saying that be careful who you follow and who you aspire to be like, because you're the 5 friends around you, but you're also the 5 people you follow. Like, you're very much like that. And so when I was 15, 16 years old, I stopped following people around me, and I started following people that I could see their entire story. So I started going all the way back to Cornelius Vanderbilt, John D. Rockefeller, JP Morgan, and understanding what is a monopoly and how is one built and how do you create value and what happened, why did something fail. And I love that. And so I become so obsessed with that it's allowed me to understand and realize that history repeats itself. And people forget, they always overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And so everyone's looking at, like, right now, economy's great. Everyone's like, time now, buy a house, do this. And I'm like, yo, hi, can you rewind the video 10 minutes? Were you not there? Because I think that's you right there in the orange shirt. That was 10 years ago. I'm like, and by the way, rewind it again. That was your mom right there. And it just keeps happening, and people forget, because you know why? Greed. The most powerful force in the world is greed. And greed will always command all. And in a capitalistic society, a lot of greed is good. Too much greed is really bad. And so we need greed. I love that people are selfish. I love greed because it pushes people to create amazing companies. It pushes people to create amazing inventions. I want to be the one that solves cancer. I'm like, yo, dude, take it. Like, we'll call it after you. I'll build a monument. Dude, solve cancer, figure that out. You can have it all, dude. So it's very, very important to understand that, unpack that. And then I think because of my upbringing, not being afraid to talk about things that are taboo or things that might be awkward. They call me the awkward elephant hunter. So I walk into a room and I say, listen, I know what's going on here. Like, I deal with celebrities all the time, right? And you'll have an agent, you'll have a manager, you'll have a friend, you'll have a lawyer. And it's like, look, I get it. You're worried about the fact that the price going down up front is going to hurt your 10% commission. You're worried about the legal work and me taking the legal work from you. You're worried about this. You're worried about your client's image and how it's going to look 5 years down the road. So everyone, I was like, let's just talk about it. And 5 minutes later, all of a sudden people are like, oh, it's not, don't be as scared. If you're in business, don't be afraid to talk about money. What's your margin? Here's my margin. What's your margin, dude? It's like, okay, now we know how to make money together. And that's the thing, that if you can learn that from an early age, to talk about things that are on your mind that you're afraid to say, just say it.
Did that come from your dad also? Is that how he was?
No, I think my mom is a little bit more that way.
Got it.
I remember growing up, I would come over and my friends would come over, and we were like going to go to like a party or something that night. And I'd be like, oh, we're going to go play video games at so-and-so's house. And like, I would jump in the shower and I tell my friends, like, yo, if my mom comes in, like, you remember the plan? We're telling her we're going to video games. We're playing 007. We're on level 4. My controller broke. Like, I'm like, all the details. You guys got it. You take the notes. And then I'd leave. And then, of course, she'd come in and she'd be like, so what video game are you guys playing? And like, oh, really? Okay, well, when are you guys going over there? I can drop you guys off. And so like, very kind of, it's intense. But I think I learned that from her. And it's hard to hide things around people like that. Now, she's a little too intense sometimes, where you're kind of like, come on, chill. But honestly, in growing up in the hood, you can't really beat around the bush. It's like, is that guy going to kill me or not? I got to know. It's like, is my stuff am I gonna get robbed? Like, you have to be on high alert. So you don't have time to be socially correct or whatever, right? Politically correct. You don't got time for that. Because the guy's coming at you with a gun. You're like, oh, tight, dude. No, yeah, no.
Yeah. Not really sure. What
Not
is
really
that?
sure. Sick, dude.
Is that a toy?
Like, no, you're like, I've got to fight this guy, run, like, fight.
Yeah.
So you get trained after a while and you realize what I found is it's really refreshing.
Yeah.
I get along with a lot of people who have very successful businesses because they're accustomed to people being yes men to them or trying to coerce them into deals or trying to give $1 with the hand right behind it, like, or like they're constantly doing this. I give without expecting anything.
Yeah.
That's it. That's key number one. Rule number one. Give with a 50-year payback horizon, because your mind can't help but think, oh, I don't want to go to this event, but so-and-so's going to be there, and I would really like him to carry my toothpaste.
Yeah.
So if I go there, I'm going to shake hands with him, we'll have a couple of drinks, we'll build rapport, and then he's going to be like, yeah, you're my dude, and he's going to carry my products. Does that reality play out? A lot of times, sure.
Yeah.
But if you go out and you just say, I'm going to be myself, and you do that over and over again, there's one thing that will stick with you is that's a real ass dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he's going to be careful with Josh, because he's going to say what's on his mind.
Yeah.
If he thinks it's a scam, he's going to say it. He could be wrong, but he's going to tell you what's on his mind. Yeah. And now my friends come to me and they're like, yo, this, we're looking at this thing, what do you think, Josh? And I was like, all right, let me think about it. Let me read into it. Let me study it.
Yeah.
And what I found is that my job is to be the totem pole of the village, like of my friends.
Yeah.
There are people who are connectors. I'm not a connector. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I need connectors in my life, and connectors need the totem pole. They need the river source of information.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of the library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
And you come to me and it's like, yo, what do you think about this? I'm like, no. There WeWorks, the justification behind structuring, the dropping the value, and here's what SoftBank messages, like, got it, and they'll turn around.
Yeah.
And so that puts a lot of pressure on me.
Yep.
Right? Because now, I have to know. I have to have the answer. I don't have to know everything, but I have to know someone who might know it.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it as a CEO, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, your job is to solve the problems that nobody else can solve, which is a lot of pressure. But if you don't do that, you lose the respect of your people, and they lose their trust in you, especially A players.
Yeah, big time. What do you think about, like, because you mentioned growing up in like a rough area, your parents coming here from Spain. I think a lot of times what happens to people in those environments is mentally they just can't see themselves being successful. They don't think it's meant for them. And I think like the mental block that happens when people don't see success for themselves, maybe they listen to songs about it and they have a vision board with Ferraris on it, but they don't truly believe they're good enough.
Right.
Why do you think you were able to not suffer from that? I think a lot of people suffer from that. And it sounds like you grew up in an environment where that very easily could have been your thing, and you could have spent your whole life wishing for those nice things.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, you're right on, right? It's easier to not go to the gym. It's easier to eat that extra burger. It's always easier to do the things that are usually not worth having. Yeah. And again, it's that chase difficulty side. The thing is, I realized because there's periods of loneliness. So when you spend a lot of time in deep thought, especially if you're alone, or even running a company, is one of the loneliest things you can do. You have to give praise all day, but you rarely get praise. Not that you need it, but it's a thankless job in many ways.
Yeah.
And of course, if you succeed and you do well and you take all this risk, hopefully, damn right you deserve a Lambo. Yeah. Like it's like damn right.
Yeah.
I was just looking at my 12-year overnight success story, and sometimes I do feel bad. Like I'm driving on a Ferrari or a McLaren, and I'm like, should I be doing more? Should I be doing this? Or like, do I deserve this? Like that imposter syndrome, that voice for me never goes away. Yeah. But what I realized over time, especially figuring out school, because I was like a class clown, like a jock, an athlete. Like and then I became a straight A student because I realized that no one was going to give me anything. The world owes me nothing, and things only get harder if you want better for yourself. Things only get harder, but you can get better. Yeah. And so it became about self-improvement, and it was like, look, I looked around me. I looked at my friends that were dropping out of high school, going to jail, having kids at 15 years old, and that scared me because for me it was like, even though I was sitting on that city bus with $3 in my pocket, in my head, having a big imagination is important. As we get older, we lose that, but it's very, very, very important to have an imagination because entrepreneurs for sure live in the future, and entrepreneurs are generally optimistic. So if you're optimistic and live in the future, a lot of times you can get upset with your present. You don't celebrate wins that you should celebrate with your team. A lot of things. There's a lot of things that come with that, but for me, it was like nobody owes me anything. Like, this is not the life I want to live.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to struggle. Yeah. I used to drive down the road 15, 20 minutes to the nicer part of town, and I would stand outside and I would see all the nice cars coming up, and I would say, wow, like, I would love to drive one of those cars one day.
Yeah.
And so I would ask the people as they were coming out of their car, I'd be like, oh, so sorry to bother you. Like, I love your car. May I ask you what you do?
Yeah.
And like 8 times out of 10, it was like, I sold a business or I own so-and-so business.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, if I want to have one of these cars, I need to create a business. What does that mean? What do I do? Yep. And so for me, as a young boy, it was, I want to have nice cars. I want all the girls to look at me when I pull up.
Yeah.
I want to have all the vans. I want all of them. And it's like, that was it, right?
Good.
And
that's so real.
It's the truth, right? I'm honestly, the first time I started making money, like significant money, I remember going straight to the mall. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I'm by myself. And I had just bought a Lincoln Navigator. It's a big old truck, right? SUV. Yeah. Pull up to it. I walk out. I'm by myself. It's like the middle of the day, like a Wednesday, or I don't know when it was, but like middle of the day, no one's at the mall.
Yeah.
And I walk in, I walk straight in, and I say, all the colors. Yeah. Size 12, all the colors.
Yeah.
And I filled that Navigator filled with shoes.
Yep.
And colors I didn't even really want.
Yeah.
But I was like, for the first time, it wasn't just because I used to get a new pair of shoes when, every semester or whatever that would start with school.
Yeah.
And that was about it, right? So I get new shoes and I love shoes. And for me, that was like I could just lay in my shoes, lay in Vans, and I'm like, I made it, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing too is that the downfall of that is that I didn't understand, when I started making money, I thought that it would never stop.
Yeah.
And it's like, I figured it out finally. And it's like, I'm set. It's done.
Yeah.
And then I remember sitting in class and I would write down how much I was making for the day. Uh-huh. And then I would multiply it by 30 and then I'd multiply it by 12.
Yeah.
And then I was like, if I can, and then I would do like a hypothetical and it'd be like, okay, well, if I doubled sales, then I did that. And then I went online, I'm like, how much to lease Lamborghini or rent a Lamborghini or like, and then I went into use Lamborghinis on Carfax or Auto Trader, and I was like, oh my god, $99,000. Then I did the calculator, and I was like $2,800 a month. I was like, okay, I'm like writing this all out, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, this is actually possible. I can drive a Lambo with my 20 pairs of Vans on, and I can be the man. So a lot of that is the truth. I think that when people become incredibly successful, maybe it's like. Maybe it's awkward to talk about the initial aspirations, or maybe they forget. I don't know. Yeah. But for me, it was like, I want to make money. I want to help my family out. Yeah. Being poor sucks. Yeah. No one's going to do anything for me. Yeah. I don't want the life that I see around me. And I want to drive Lambos, wear 20 Vans, and I want to be the man. Yeah. And it's like, in order to do that, I've got to put in the work. And the harder it is, that means that the goal at the end of it is probably that much more ripe. Yeah. Because when you're going on the hike to success, a lot of people will stop for the side creeks and they'll kind of just hang out there. Again, the rabbits, they'll jump on those. Yep. But if you stay focused and you keep going, there will be a pot of gold at the end that will make everything worthwhile, right? And so for me, like looking at other people's success, I think that was the biggest breakthrough. Seeing that out of the 500 stories I was reading, 400 out of the 500 were just like me. Yeah. Worse. Yeah. Like orphan, no food, shot. And you're like, billionaire, self-made. And you're like, what? Yeah. Like, wait a second. Now, of course, they're at fancy galas and they're like, do-do-do. And you watch the Warren Buffett documentary. And it's, oh, grandpa, he goes in his little Cadillac he's had for 80 years, the house that he bought for $1. Yeah. And it's like all this stuff. And it's like, I don't want to say bullshit. I love Warren Buffett. I love, undeniably. But I watched the John Paul DeJoria, one of my favorite guys, Patron and all that, about whale conservation and everything. I'm like, bro. Let's be honest, okay? Yep. You saw this dynamic guy who was selling shampoo and stuff. Yeah. You said, this could be an amazing front man. He's got the formulas. I can sell door to door. He was selling door to door already. And he said, let's do it. His lady had left him. He had a child to feed. So it's like, I got to make money now.
Yeah.
And he hustled. And it's like, I want to be a billionaire. Yeah. And you bought the Patron Blue Agave plant. In my opinion, it's a smart move because now you can say this is the only tequila like this because you own the plant. Yeah. Amazing. Hand blow the glass, mark up the margin to $80. Now you've got premium tequila. Yep. Give it out to celebrities so they can say it in their songs. Yep. Amazing. I love it. Yep. Why can't people tell it how it is? Yep. You know, and for me, and again, I could be completely wrong, but when I like to see the full story. Yeah. Otherwise, and I try to share that full story because there's someone out there listening that is like, oh, okay, it's not just about, you know, I'm not going to sit here and just be like, work harder, do this, do that. I'm not going to yell at you. Yeah. You know.
Thank you for that, by the way.
I'm not here to yell at you. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, what do you want? You want a Lambo? Or do you're cool with a Honda? Do you want kids? How many kids? Do you want a big house, small house? Where do you want to live? Let's talk about your future and I'll tell you how much money you need to make. And then let's figure out how you're going to make that money. Yeah. Because everybody's like, they don't want to talk about money. Like, oh, it's okay. Yeah. Everything's okay. And not everybody wants to be a millionaire. Not everyone should be a millionaire. Totally fine. But let's talk about it. And so for me, I was very real with myself. And I said, I've got to have a Lamborghini as my daily driver. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I just got to do it. Yeah. And it's like, I've got to have the penthouse. Yeah. I can't be on the second floor. I have to be in the penthouse. Yeah. So what do I got to do? I've got to create a lot of value. I've got to create a lot of jobs. And I got to put all my money in and hope this works. Yeah. That's it. I got to work 18-hour days for 7 years straight. Yeah. Cool. In America, you can do that. And if you stick to it and you've got a decent idea, you'll be surprised 7 years down the road. You're like, things come together, sometimes sooner, sometimes later. Yeah. But generally, they come together. As long as you don't lose yourself in ego, you know, or something bad happens to you, it generally happens. Yeah.
What was that initial success of yours? You said you made $1 million at 17, but what was the first thing that you did where you really started seeing like, oh shit, I'm actually like, there's one thing about buying 20 vans. And then there's another thing when like you're really like doing very, very well. What was that thing that really paid off big time for you?
So I was making websites and then I started using the library at the school and to finish up like website projects and stuff. And teachers would see me making the websites and they'd be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm making a website. Like, you're making a website? Yeah. And this was in 2008 when there were still a lot of businesses that were like, I've got to have my own website now. Yeah. You know, it's like, I have to. So they're like, my friend's looking to get a website. Can you make one? And I was like, okay, sure. And like, how much does it cost? How much are you going to charge? And I was like, oh, I could charge for this? Like, and I remember going to Google, I was like, how much to charge for a website? And I was like, $500 is what I charge, I think. And I got it done in the weekend and brought it back. And it was like, here it is. It's live. Do you like it? Can you show it to her? Yeah. And she's like, it's done? Done? Like, done? Yeah. He's like, oh my gosh, this takes months and like way more money. So word spread very quickly. That's why you got to humble yourself in the beginning. Yeah. I'm this young kid, makes amazing websites in 2 days for $500. Yeah. Word spreads. Now everybody can have a website. So that started spreading, and that's how I started making initial money. And then I found out about Google AdSense. You get paid for every click on your website, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And I remember sitting there, I'm like, getting my first like 18-cent click, and I was like, 18 cents. If I get 1 million clicks times 30 days, you know, and then I couldn't sleep because then it was like, oh my gosh, I'm making money in my sleep. Yeah. I need 20 of these blogs that all have ads on them. Yeah. So I'm sitting there. And I'm at the public library, grabbing a magazine, reading an article, rewriting it in my own words, in my own take. Yeah. And I had 20 different blogs with ads all over them. And then I was like, how do I get more people to my website? So then I went back to my Famous for Dummies series and I looked up online marketing, looked up everything, and everything involved money. I was like, I really don't have money. Yeah. And I found search engine optimization, SEO. And I was like, free? I could do that. And I was like, all right. I have to be the best SEO person in the world because I don't have money. Yeah. So I was like, I have time, I don't have money. And so I studied search and optimization as heavily as I could. Yeah. And then I started seeing my revenue go up for the clicks. And then I was like, okay, what if the clicks are cool? There's got to be another way to make more money from this stuff. Then I found affiliate marketing. So now I could sell to people's products, get paid $30 every sale or 30% of every sale. So I swapped out those Google ads with ads for products. Yeah. My revenue 10x'd. Then I found the website called SitePoint, and they had a marketplace, which is now called Flippa. and I could sell websites on there. And I was like, what? I could sell websites? So at 15, I sold my first blog on there for $4,000.
Yeah.
I was refreshing at the school my Chase bank account, my little college savings thing, refreshing it. And finally it hit. I told my friend Xavier, who was next to me, who had no idea what I was talking about at all. But I was like, look. And he was like, whoa, like, is that real?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I went and bought a 1992 Toyota Camry, and I no longer was tied to the bus. And then shortly after, I quit football, got a lot of heat for that, quit track and field, got a lot of heat for that. And I was like, I need to go all in here. And then one day, one of my clients that I was making websites for was like, Josh, you make great websites, but I pay you once and you leave, and that's it. He's like, if you learn like how to sell stuff online, like help me get more sales online, bring more people into my place, I would pay you every month. And I was like, oh, that's good. So at the same time as I was figuring out affiliate marketing and SEO for my own stuff, I was figuring out that people could pay me $2,000 a month, $5,000 a month to do SEO for them. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Then I was like, I remember I was doing schoolwork, getting straight A's in school because that was the deal with my parents. It was like I had to get straight A's and they would let me do whatever it was I'm doing on the internet. Like, I don't know what's going on there, but you know, hopefully the police aren't going to knock on the door anytime soon. And so I'm doing all this and I'm like, I need help. But there's literally no one, and especially where I grew up, like nobody knew what I was doing. Two, nobody knew how to do it. Like I can't turn to my buddy, my football buddy, and be like, yo, can you code this page real quick? No. So I went to Google and I was like, how to hire people online. And I found the website called freelancer.com, Elance, Odesk, which is now Upwork. And so I started hiring freelancers in Pakistan, India, talking to them on AIM and Skype and saying like, yo, I need you to make the website like this. Now I could take on more websites that I could focus on the marketing side. Then I could hire the SEO people to write the content. I was no longer sitting there writing stuff. And then I could flip websites on the SitePoint Marketplace. And then I became like a broker, and nobody knew my age, nobody knew anything. Like it was a username, but they saw me flipping a lot of sites on there, and they're like, "Yo, can you sell my website?" And I remember seeing the back end of these guys that were making millions a year, living in Hawaii with like just Pakistan workers, and I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. So I was like, I got to figure something out. So the $1 million came as a combination of understanding all together that if I figure out how to sell, I will never have to work a normal job in my life if I can sell. And if I can sell online, it's super scalable. Eventually, that led to selling my own products. So it was clicks, affiliate, selling other people's products. Then where the real gold is at is selling your own product, the most difficult thing to do, but building your own brand. So that was kind of the building block that I figured out.
That's incredible. What led to, what was the first product that you introduced?
So I mean, I sold all kinds of stuff. So I used to make software too. So I remember on MySpace, I had created software that would go to YouTube and comment on, and vice versa, comment on every video based on a keyword search to go check out the profile and this type of stuff. So I figured out how to essentially game, increasing profile views, the profile music plays. So I had mostly hip hop artists and some big names. I've got the file somewhere. Like I literally went to Walmart and I bought this little thing that you put index cards in, and I alphabetized it, and I had my clients in there, and I'd be like, pull it up. Oh, they ordered last time. What did I charge them? Go to PayPal, create the little button, send them the email link. And so I was making thousands of dollars a day promoting bands and stuff on MySpace. And that was kind of my first product, was that software. And then I was like, after a while, I was like, maybe I could sell this software. So then I started selling the software on a forum called Black Hat World and Warrior Forum and all these internet marketing forums. So I started selling the software on there for $999 so that they could start their own business doing what I was doing. And then I realized something dynamic is that you want to sell the shovel. You don't want to dig for gold. So in that scenario, selling the software and letting other people make money is key. Supreme does it all the time. Supreme sells something, they could sell it for way more, but let other people make money. And when I look at the 2008, or really the dot-com bubble crash and even 2008 and beyond, the companies that stayed around after the 2000 crash were two things. They allowed you to either save money or make money. The best allowed you to do both. Amazon allows you to save money initially. Now it's pricier, but it's allowed you to save money, price shop, and make money as a third marketplace. eBay, Craigslist, every single startup that survived that as a marketplace, Airbnb, save money, make money.
Yeah, yeah.
It goes on and on and on and on. Uber, make money, save money.
Yeah.
I can do this all day.
Yeah.
Because they're all like that.
Yeah.
And so I figured it out and I said, oh my gosh, this is genius. If I create a product, if I own the brand that allow people to make money, franchising, that type of stuff. So the first our first product was software. And then I wanted to get into physical goods.
Yeah.
And so I found Alibaba and TradeNet probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Like drop shipping wasn't a thing. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And I've never drop shipped, but like, I mean, I've used third-party fulfillment centers, but like I've never drop shipped straight from China.
Yeah.
But I started searching on there, and that changed my world, because I went on this marketplace, and I'm like, what?
You can make anything.
Wait, what? What?
Yeah.
And then I was like, no way. And I started like typing stuff in, and now there's like AliExpress and other things like that. But I would type things in, and I'd be like, I just paid $30 for that HDMI cable. It's 30 cents here.
Yeah.
I just gotta wait 2 weeks for it to come in.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna order it. It's probably a scam. And then it came in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. So now I started ordering something. I'm like, how much would it cost if I bought 10,000 of these from you? Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a second, I can put them on Amazon and eBay. And I'm like, oh, arbitrage. Like I figured out arbitrage indirectly. Business is simple. I can give you an MBA in 2 seconds. Buy for one price, sell for a higher price. That's it.
Yeah.
That's simple. So I'm like, buy for a lower price, and keep in mind, you make money on the buy, not so much the sale, right? So it's important. That's an important principle I learned over time. Is like, okay, if I can negotiate heavy with the manufacturer, I can sell it over here. I was doing that at 16, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Because what I would do is I would see the ads and the affiliate offers they were taking off on my blogs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this acai berry supplement is killing it. They're paying me $40 a sale, and somehow they're still making money. Then I went to Google, acai berry supplement manufacturer.
Yeah.
What? They're paying $2 for this supplement, and they're charging $80 for it, and they're paying me $40. I'm like, wait a second. What if I swapped out the ads on my page and started selling my own supplements? And of course, skyrocket. Now then I had to learn customer service, words called chargeback, refunds, compliance, FDA, FTC. You have to learn all that. But again, chase difficulty.
Yeah.
And so that's where I started to make a lot of money, was moving up the value chain.
Yep.
So you start here as a job, then you start as a consultant, you work for other people. You got to humble yourself, and you're going along this journey. Then you're selling stuff for other people. Then eventually you're selling your own thing. Yeah. And then eventually you're selling companies that sell their own things. And like, it just keeps going and going.
Yeah.
So that for me was like, my first few products were off my blogs, and then software, which is still one of the best businesses in the world. Yep. I just, I like to invest in software companies, but I like to sell physical stuff. Like, I don't know, I'm weird. Like, I like to sell things that you can wear, eat, smell.
It's cool. Yeah. And then, so what led you to all the way to what you're doing now? Like, how the culmination of all of these different things that you've learned and tried and sold and bought and whatever, why this? Why did you land on teeth whitening, toothpaste, floss, oral care? How'd you pick the brand? Tell me how that went. What was forming this, like, okay, here's what I'm going to do next?
Well, I had, I remember I finished Arizona State University at 20 years old. So I finished in 2 years, and I worked nonstop from 20 to like 21, 22, literally nonstop. And I had a little bit of burnout, delayed burnout, never knew what that was. Yeah. Wonder boy syndrome. What are you going to do next? Yeah. It's got to be big. So it's like, then shiny object syndrome, just all this stuff hitting me at once. Imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Am I striving too high? I should just stop what I'm doing. All these things hitting me at once. And what I realized is that the way I explained it is, it was always like the pursuit of happiness. Like, there was this point where I'm like, got it. And it was like, once I have that Lambo, that's it. Yeah. Or like, done. And it's you have to think that way initially, I think. The way I think about it, it's like, you have to think that way, because you have to put that Lambo on your wall. Yeah. You have to think that once you have money, all your problems are solved. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for you to acquire that money. You don't have the rationale for it. You got to think in your head, I can help a lot of people out. You got to put that in your head. But once you get there, you're like, shit, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
And I used to always say, people are like, oh, money isn't my happiness. Like, well, then give me your money. I'll tell you. Yeah. And the truth is, it gives you options. It gives you options. It gives you the options for convenience, a lot of things, right? You can fly first class and be a little bit more comfy. You can do certain things, sure. But I was sitting there and I was like, what am I going to do next? And I started investing in other people's businesses, realized I wasn't rich enough to do a lot of that like I wanted to. And I'm like, okay, now, and I'm also too young. I actually want to get involved. I want to do stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, yo, just give me a check and chill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. So I was like, okay. Then I was like, maybe I should consult, but then that makes me look like I'm having money problems or something.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff is hitting my head. I'm like, what do I do? So I was having jaw surgery at the time. So I was spending a lot of time in orthodontics. I had braces. I was doing all this stuff with my mouth.
Yeah.
So I had horrible jaw pain and headaches. And so I wanted to fix it. And the best way to fix it, I guess, is surgery. That's what I did.
Yeah.
So I became friends with my oral surgeon. They would come over. My oral surgeon would come over. We'd have a glass of whiskey and just talk. And one day I asked him, I was like, where's the money at for someone like me? Like, I'm not a dentist. I'm not a doctor. And he's like, well, I mean, you've got strips over here, teeth whitening strips, and then you've got the dental treatment, and then you've got like veneers.
Yeah.
There's like a big gap in the middle. It's a pretty big industry. And I was like, well, I love the beauty industry. I love beauty. I love cosmetics.
Yeah.
I love fashion. I love design. And then I thought about it. And I remember I went to, might have been CVS or Target or something. And I was walking down the oral care aisle and everything looked so sterile. It looked so like ugly. And it's like ugly. And everything was mint. Everything said whitening on it. It confused me. And I'm like, and then you walk down like the skincare aisle or something else and you're like, wow, fashionable. Like, this is nice. Like, I feel good.
Yeah.
Why can't I feel good about my oral care?
Yeah.
And I said, what if I brought my technology background, my sales, marketing, branding background, and created some excitement in oral care? Yeah. And I said, okay, wait a second. It's not the pursuit to this point of happiness. The pursuit is my happiness.
Yeah.
I have to keep moving. Otherwise, I'll be depressed.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I have to keep moving. I have to keep growing. So for me, it was like, I need a vehicle that could last 50 years. Yeah. I need something that can grows with population growth. Everyone has teeth. And I'm like, okay, cool. International. Got it. I can do cool stuff here. I can stand out. I can be unique here. I can take stuff from fashion. I can take stuff from beauty, makeup, and I can bring it into oral care. And I'm like, okay, I like this. I like this. Then I started looking up the market. Okay. And the reason why no one's done it is because the people sitting at top are very powerful.
Yeah.
They have a lot of money and they control a lot.
Yeah.
So you'd be a fool to do that. But I said, at this point in my life, you know, when you're like, you kind of feel like you've done everything. You're just like, I'm gonna go skydive right now. Or like, you're like, dude, chill. Like, no, I'm just, if I die, I die. If I don't, you know, I'm looking for something else.
Yeah.
And like a drug addict moving from marijuana to syringes, I wanted to move to the syringe. I wanted the ultimate high. I want the competition. I want the challenge. Yeah. And the thing with beauty, same with oral care, but like where margins are high, blood is in the water, the bigger sharks come. And it's never a secret for long. You think you found something, it will get out. And so anyway, I said, okay. So I told my buddy, I'm my oral surgeon and my dentist, and I'm like, yo guys, I need your help. Like, help me formulate this, test it on your patients. Can you help me out? And I'd been helping them with marketing stuff, things like that. And I was like, this is my only favor I'm asking. If you're cool with it, they're like, yeah, cool. Just bring in whatever you have. Let me know. So I consumed everything I could on teeth whitening. Yeah. I read every Amazon review, read everything. I went on freelancer.com, hired a Russian to scrape all the Amazon reviews, compile them. And I was like, okay, cool. I got a report here. I said, okay, I'm going to create a unique formula. It's got to be unique. It has to work. It can't cause sensitivity. The LED technology has to accelerate it so it works on all teeth. So it's like, I wrote down the few things I needed. Then I started calling up manufacturers. And I said, I don't want to sell anybody else's product. I want to sell my own product. Yeah. And so I was like, can you make this unique? So the first version of the product comes out and it's me creating the ads. I'm by the pool creating the ads. Yeah. And keep in mind, I'm a multimillionaire at the time, right? I could just go and hire people and be like, go do it. Yeah. No, I'm sitting there, Facebook ad, I'm writing the ad, I'm creating the Shopify website. Yeah. I'm doing everything myself. I'm getting some help from different people from my team, but like I'm doing it all myself. Yeah. And I said, I don't know if this is gonna work. We'll see. Then it's just by myself. It does $1 million in sales in like 6 months or something like that. I'm like, okay, clearly people are liking it. Very few people are returning the product. Very few people are complaining. Everybody loves it. I'm like, I think I've locked the formula piece. Second thing is technology. And everyone was saying that they're on their phone while they're whitening their teeth, or they're on their tablet, or they're watching TV. So I was like, wait, why can't it be powered by that? Yeah. So then I was like, okay. So then I reached out on clarity.fm to hire consultants or whatever to speak with. And I talked to industrial designers, product engineers, and was asking them, like, who do you know in your network can help me? I'll pay, whatever. I wanted to plug in here. So then we invented, me and my team, which was like 3 of us at the time, invented the ability for it to be powered by a mobile device, which now we've been knocked off and all that type of stuff. But again, we just keep moving. And so then once we came out with that really exploded. And with 500,000 customers, most in the last 12 months, no one's ever picked our product because it's the cheapest on the market. They always pick it because it's the brand they want. And now we're going into toothpaste, mouthwash. We're going into so many other areas. And we now have more website traffic than Crest and Colgate. Our customer reviews are through the roof. And now we're rolling out retail nationwide, internationally. So now it's kind of like in the back of your mind, like that's the vision, but it unfolds as you're doing it. Clarity comes through progress. You can only sit there and pontificate for so long. You're like, you have to do something. And, we went from Snow Teeth Whitening to now just Snow. And Snow is an oral cosmetic brand, but it expands beyond that. Like we're coming out with a beauty fridge to store your beauty products in. Our serum, it's a Snow fridge. We're doing collaborations. We're doing an Arctic mud mask. So, glacial facial, so, blue mud mask you put on. So we're doing a lot more brand collabs. And I'm taking the ideas from like Virgil Abloh and Kith and applying that to oral care. And it's like, what? And it's like, why not?
Yeah, that's awesome. What's been like your whole thing is chase difficulty, and you jumped into a very, very difficult area. What has been the most difficult of the entire thing? Is there anything that stands out to you as like, oh, I didn't know that was coming?
So, we have 0 outside investors right now. We're looking at a potential first round of funding, working with some banks. Even talks of like potential IPO. What does that look like? And we've got a mass consumer product. And so I think that when you self-fund something, I'm a big believer in, if the number one person I'm gonna bet on is myself. If you can't bet on yourself or you can't bet on this business, you probably shouldn't be taking investor money. You probably shouldn't be going to the bank. You probably shouldn't be doing it. So I think that when you pour money into something, I've poured millions of dollars into this brand. In the back of your mind, you just kind of question, like, am I doing the right thing? You're essentially what you're doing is you're doing a big FU to Maslow's hierarchy and saying, I'm willing to sacrifice or jeopardize my food, shelter, and security for a future self. And I like risk. I'm a gambler on myself, at least. And then I think the other thing too is, first they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And it's a lot easier now because now I can pick up the phone, anyone will answer the call. I've got lawyers. I've got it helps, having money and having status a little bit. It certainly does, but it's still very lonely. And I will tell you that, everybody sees what they want to see from the outside. But internally it's like, it's not easy, right? And there's no halo effect. Like it doesn't. Yeah, you can make a couple calls to some retailers, like Costco reached out to us, things like that, sure. But it doesn't get easier, And you become a bigger target. More people want to sue you. More people want to take money from you, ask for things. It just you become more in the spotlight. And I understand now why Warren Buffett creates that veneer. And it's like I'm just a nice old man. Because guess what? The last guy who was flaunting. Got guillotined with Marie Antoinette, and everybody was fighting for bread in the streets, building Versailles. You don't do that. So I get it. I understand it. And it's funny because when you're coming up, it's like you put on all the blingy jewelry. I mean, I still love jewelry, but you put on all the jewelry, you put on the Gucci, the Louis as you're coming up, and then once you're like there, you start going the other way. And you're like, no, I'm not putting Gucci on. Like, there's a logo on there. Nah, I don't want it. And you're like, what? You can afford it all now. But anyway, it's funny how it works. But I would say loneliness, at least in thought, because you're living in the future. I'm a sole founder in Snow, so I don't. In my other business, I have a business partner, and I've got a great team. And my team is incredible, and I owe them everything. But sometimes when I'm living in the future, it's lonely because you're just like, can we do this? I'm like, yeah, we can. How do we do this? Okay, I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all the great things are happening, but also all this is happening. It's not necessarily problems where you're like, okay, how do we structure funding? How do we structure purchase orders? How do we factor invoices? You start to figure all this stuff out, and it's like, wow. So it's funny because sometimes in your biggest moment, or you're about to go on stage, there's that sinking layer of doubt that starts to cloud your vision.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense because you're on stage, the crowd is here, everyone's clapping, but there's that thing that never goes away.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that not enough entrepreneurs talk about loneliness. I think there's a lot to be said about maintaining sanity through all of that.
Yeah.
It's easy to want to run away from problems. It's easy to want to do those things, and that never solves anything for anybody. So for me, the persistence is very, very key. Sticking to your vision, being willing to adapt it, but sticking to the overall vision of that, and being a strong advocate of what you're doing. And so I am constantly preaching what I'm doing. I get in trouble. Like I post stuff that I get a text 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, you're going to kill the deal. Take that off.
Yeah.
Or like, yo, like, please get rid of that. And I do that because I want to show the story of how David beats Goliath.
Yeah.
And I am willing to sacrifice literally all my money, my body, my soul, my reputation. I don't care. I'll sacrifice everything to show young entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in general, what you can do. And what happens if you just go all in, and you just go all in and you push it all the way. And I want to show all of that because people wait till they're already successful, or they pretend they're successful and jump on stages, or they're too far out that they're out of touch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have seen John D. Rockefeller or someone like that podcasting. Like
100%.
Hey, thanks today. Welcome to the Monopoly podcast.
Yeah, 100%,
You know,
100%.
I'm like, I would love to listen to that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I just want every entrepreneur out there to realize that you're not alone. We're all going through the same thing. To believe in yourself, you have to be your biggest believer. Write down those visions, write down those goals, and never stop. Don't handicap your dreams.
Yeah.
Don't be like, maybe I shouldn't strive this hard. You got to be realistic in the moment, right? Don't be like, I want $1 billion in sales next year. Like that doesn't happen when you're at 1 million. But be realistic. Be willing to put in the work. I promise you, the worst that's going to happen, even if your business failed. Now I can sit here and say Snow's a huge success. It's great.
Yeah.
Cool. But even still, the same thought is in mind. Whether we have 100 million in sales or $1 in sales, it was like, here's what I'm doing. Here's why I'm doing it. And even if I'm wrong, I'm going to be better. I'm going to have better connections. And I would have learned from my experience. And I can share that with others. And I can bring that to my next venture. I can't bring the halo effect of success over, but I can bring those learnings. And if you think of yourself as a video game character, you want to constantly be leveling up that character, adding armor to him, making him look better, stronger, bring him to the gym. You are your own character in your game. And in order to play the higher levels and to beat the boss, you have to be ready for that. And you don't beat the boss by staying on level 2. You've got to keep going.
That's an incredible ending statement. I have 2 big questions that I always ask at the end, but that was a flawless end there. If you could jump in a time machine right now and go to any point in your own life and just tell yourself anything real quick, what would you say to yourself? And where would you go?
I think I would go to the time where I was first starting, entrepreneurship, and I was so embarrassed to tell my parents, embarrassed to tell everyone because it's so risky.
Yeah.
I felt stupid. I felt selfish, and to say that, just put your head down and make it happen. Like, don't be afraid. Think bigger and longer term. You got this.
Yeah. And then the last one is, if you could prescribe anything to the entire world for 30 days and everyone has to do it, whatever you say, what do you tell everyone to do?
Do something that scares you every day.
Yep. That's it. That easy. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
This was really good. Thanks for there was a lot jammed into that hour. Thanks for really I don't know. I think, like I said, the reason why people really connect with you, we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, is that real look into what it's really like to build these businesses and to be on your own and to do this stuff. It's not a lot of smoke and mirrors and marketing and blah, blah, blah. So I thank you for sharing all that.
Of course.
There it is.
Of course.
We did it.
Brother.
Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it, I promise.